Welcome, and how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. I know we both have just come out off of an exhausting Comic-Con weekend, so happy to be here.
Of course, I'm obsessed with Morph. I really love your portrayal, and it made my heart smile. And I know you've been asked a million and one questions about the character, so I'm going to move Morph a little bit farther down, and I just want to know a little bit more about you. So, when did you know that voice acting was right for you? Was there a specific project that made you go, "Yeah, this is where it's at"?
Um, I think it wasn't so much a project, it was more like as I was studying voice acting. I went to school for theater. I moved out to LA for college, and right after I graduated, it was all about getting into some TV shows and doing on-camera acting. And I'd always loved cartoons. I was a big animation fan, but I don't know. I was under the sort of the misconception that it seemed so fun that it couldn't be a real job. It had to be just something that they just let you do if you're famous enough. So I was really just out here pursuing on-camera acting, and then one of my professors connected me with some voiceover teachers, and I started studying. And as time went on, I just found that in on-camera, I was getting more and more typecast as the "Hey girl," like that person. And in voiceover, I just had so much freedom to play a whole variety of different characters. So, when you're working a day job and you only have so many coins that you can put towards your career, I just found more and more of it was going towards voiceover training and less was going to on camera. And then finally, my on camera manager was just like, "Do you still want to do this?" And I'm like, No, I don't." And so it's been voiceover ever since.
I love it. So, what does voiceover training look like? What are some of your training processes that you have to go through?
I mean, I've done training in animation and commercial voiceover, video games, promo, like tonight on I was going to say Jay Leno tonight on Jimmy Fallon, whatever. And I think my animation was something that I'm an only child. Grew up with not too many friends, so I had a lot of imaginary friends that I was giving voice to in the bathroom mirror. Um, and so creating voices just kind of came naturally to me. It was really like the commercial training and being able to do a realistic read that took a little more training. Yeah, but I mean, I found that so much of what I'd already learned in improv classes, my general acting and scene study classes, and then also one of the general education requirements I took in college, it was a science credit, was in phonology, which is the study of how our mouth makes sound. And just knowing like the different parts of our vocal tract and how you can adjust sound, I mean, was kind of essential for me being able to turn dials in my voice to control what's coming out. So, yeah, all of that sort of put together made a career.
That's interesting. I've never heard of the science part of it, but I took French in high school and college, and so there was a having to get just right for the R, and
Mhm.
just every language seems to have like a certain spot where you have to make a thing happen for the word to be right.
Yeah, there's actually a technical term for it. It's called placement. When I would study dialect work later, I mean, every language, has like sits in a different part of your mouth. Like, French actually sits, a little bit more up here. Russian sits a little further back. Like, yeah, it's all part
I
of it.
love I love languages. That's so fun.
Hmm.
A little brain wrinkle for everyone. Get a new fact today. So, speaking of just some of the training and going into voice work, talk to me a little bit about your organization, Queerbox Academy.
Sure. So I started QueerVox at the very end of 2020, beginning of 2021. And it was born out of conversations that I was having with casting friends where we were simultaneously celebrating the rise of queer characters in animation and video games while also sort of bemoaning that they were rarely, if ever, authentically cast. And the common refrain was, well, we just don't know where to find them. And I'm like, well, these people exist. We know that those actors are out there. So I just created this class thinking maybe it just has to do with, people are trained as actors, but maybe not as voice actors, and let's see what happens there. And I think I was pleasantly surprised to find that actually there are plenty of very well trained queer and trans and non-binary voice actors, but they're just either haven't been given showcase opportunities to pursue mainstream work in like AAA games or in mainstream streaming animation, or they've been just existing in anime or other not necessarily less mainstream mediums, and trying to make their coins there. So it really has become an organization that's as much about education as it is about showcasing and networking this talent and uplifting them into the industry, and also consulting the industry itself about why authentic and diverse casting is important, where the responsibilities lie, and how best to word a casting breakdown, or work with queer actors, so that there is also that inclusion part of this as well.
Does Queerbox Academy partner with the National Association of Voice Actors?
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's three. I mean, I'm sure there's more, but there there are three multicultural voiceover organizations. There's the Voices of Global Majority, which represents people of color. There's the Disabled Voice Actors Database, and then there's us. And we chat and partner whenever we can, because there's always shared. Not only is there intersectionality, but there's also just shared concerns. And we've also partnered and chatted with NAVA on a whole bunch of different topics, including authentic casting, which is something that we're working on, like a best practices guide right now, that is sort of cross community best practices as well as offering specifics.
Would you be able to give me like maybe one or two of those best practices just as a general?
Yeah, I certainly can. Actually, let me just look at this thing right here. Um, yeah, okay. So just a couple off the top. Understanding terminology. There's a lot of misconceptions that swirl around terms in any underserved community. For our purposes, non-binary is a biggie. There's a misconception about that non-binary has a sound, that there is an androgynous sound that comes with being a non-binary human. And of course, that is not true. I mean, people sound all sorts of different ways, regardless of the way they identify. And the same can be said of being trans femme or trans masc. There may be sort of a certain idea of a voice that people have from maybe the one or two, really high profile trans people they see in the media, is like, oh, that's what a trans person's supposed to sound like. Ergo, that's what we're looking for in casting breakdowns. So we're trying to disabuse people of the notion of like, no, 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 no. Like, people can sound like anything. It's more about the authenticity that their identity brings to the table, not about this voice print. And the same is true for, Voices of Global Majority. There's always that, urban sound that people are looking for. And it's like, okay, well, okay, what do you mean by that? Like, and of course, we know that whole communities do not all sound like each other. So,
Right.
it's
Right.
it's being specific about terminology. And then also another thing we do is, within that, is expanding character profiles. If you're looking for a non-binary person and you're actually looking for an androgynous voice, let's explore why. What is it about that sound that you're looking? Are you looking for somebody who is like a cyborg, or a cold-blooded killer, or something that lends itself? Then let's talk about getting into the emotional and psychological background of that specific character and opening it up to anybody who could portray that, as opposed to sticking it on top of a specific identity that it doesn't actually belong with.
That's brava. That's brilliant. So I spent all of Saturday in Hall H, but I got to see the Bold School panel. They typically do like a women in the entertainment industry panel, and that is a conversation that they had, and Shirley Ralph talked about being told that she wasn't black enough. Yeah. So it's like
Hmm.
it happens. And it's wild. And
Yeah.
that people have to be told to, no, you can't do that.
Yeah. We had a student in QueerVox who, this was maybe a year or so ago, who's new to voiceover, hailed from, I believe, Phoenix, black student, and they were like, "I'm confused. I'm getting a radio ad for a McDonald's commercial, and it says sounding authentically black, and I'm confused why that matters and what that even means." And because she's from Phoenix, like, and was born and raised there, her voice print, to
Yeah.
the to the everyday pedestrian ear might not register as an African American, AAVE sort of dialect. Um, and she was just like, I am black. Can I not audition on this? And I'm like, yeah, you absolutely should, because it's a teaching experience to be like, authentic here. This is my voice. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's all.
Yeah. That is an experience that I know I had, and I feel like in just like being a queer kid, you feel like you're the only one. And as I've gotten older, I found other black folks who are like, yeah, I got that too. Why do you talk like that? You don't talk like a black person.
Mhm.
It's so wild. So absolutely wild. So I know that Nava had a press conference that you sat on a panel and at
Mhm.
the at Comic Con. I was not able to make it to. I'm so sorry. I wish I could have been there.
Hall H is busy. I get it.
Can you talk to me a little bit about what you discussed? And I know there was a conversation about AI, and I'd love to know a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I mean, the whole conversation was really about how AI is affecting our industry, and currently, video game voice actors, and performance capture actors are on strike, because, and the whole sticking point is for protections around AI. And it really has to do with that. Look, AI is the word of the day. It's an exciting technology. We've all seen it do some crazy stuff that could be cool, could be very beneficial. But there's a whole side of AI that is less about doing anything creative or anything exciting, and more about just greed and saving money, and pulling the human interaction with a project out of the equation. And in our case, it specifically has to do with um, replicating voice actors' voices or performance capture actors' performances, like their movements, and being able to replicate it and use it over and over again. And in the case with these companies, without additional compensation, without additional protections, like they could have us moving in all sorts of ways or saying all sorts of things that we might not approve of, and in perpetuity throughout the universe. So we can never pull the plug on it, no matter what. So the whole sticking point behind this is really having control over our voices and being able to be compensated accordingly for what use it may go for. AI is here. There's no getting around it. We're certainly not against AI in the sense that we want it to be, removed from the industry. But there is, if it's going to be here, we want to make sure that we remain an integral part of this collaborative art form, rather than be one of many jobs that AI will systematically exclude until it's just one person in front of a computer.
So, with that being said, we have the strike going on.
Mhm.
What can gamers do to support strikers?
A few things. Follow SAG-AFTRA. Follow Game Performance Matters, um, on all of your social medias, and share our content. And there's also, um, if you visit the SAG-AFTRA strike website, um, it will help provide, all sorts of information about what we're fighting for, what AI may actually do, all sorts of things. And it's really about just getting the word out and sharing your experiences with game performance, like why the authenticity of game performance matters to you, why those really powerful dramatic cinematic scenes, or the incredible movements of Spider-Man, all matter, because those are what make the game sing. I think we've all seen in the past few years in a variety of mediums, whether it's live action, animation, video games, we see performances that are not authentic. Either, sorry, dog. We see performances that don't come from a place of authenticity. Let's say they might be authentically cast, but the writing behind them isn't, or it feels like I'm sort of mixing metaphors here, but I'm always about it. For me, it always boils down to authenticity and diversity. But there might be a lack of. It might be sort of like playing the diversity Olympics, where it's like, well, as long as we're checking boxes here, it really doesn't matter if we're getting the story right. And I feel like AI has a similarness to it. We can sense when it's false. We can sense when it's the emotion isn't behind it, and it's the actors that really bring that resonance to it. So regardless of how AI is going to use our voices, they're always going to need us to be an integral part of this creative process. So we just want to be compensated and paid accordingly.
Of course. Shifting over to say maybe like the policy side of it, is there any work on like legislation that to help regulate AI in that way?
Yeah, I mean, there's two bills that are currently in Congress, one in the Senate, one in the House, that would absolutely help to regulate AI, in the sense that it would we don't own, and this isn't voice actors, this is every American does not own their image, likeness, or voice. And they can be used indiscriminately. The only way that you can end up like suing for it is libel or something. But there's really somebody could use it for basically anything, and there's no recourse that you necessarily have. So these bills would give you property rights over your image and likeness, so that you can, ask for compensation, demand something could be taken down, etc. But legislation isn't the only way that this is going to happen. We hope it will be a large part of it. But then there's also litigation. There's plenty of lawsuits that are in various courts throughout the country, marching their way towards the Supreme Court, that hopefully also could be grant us some protections when it comes to ownership of our image and likeness and voice. And yeah, I mean, those are the big things. And then, of course, there's also just like the labor actions that we do. All three of those really need to work together, because no matter how good of a contract we get in this fight, it still is going to rely on the government working with us to protect not just voice actors, but everybody from insidious use of AI.
Right. And that gets me to your other nonprofit organization, Nerds Vote.
Mm-hmm.
You love a segue? I do. I was working on it.
Mm-hmm.
So can you tell us a little bit about Nerds Vote?
Yeah. Nerds Vote is the brainchild of my co-founder and pal, Courtney Taylor, video game voice actress, best known for Fallout and Mass Effect, also in Blood of Zeus this year. Courtney frequently attends conventions doing signings, and back in like 2017, she was thinking about, oh God, I wish I had more time to really get out the vote, but I'm always at conventions where I'm surrounded by all of these people who maybe need to register to vote. So it turned into that. It turned into bringing voter registration opportunities to conventions. And then the pandemic hit. So we pivoted to being an all digital outreach organization. And now we're sort of a hybrid. We do a lot of social media and digital outreach. And then we also mobilize our notable nerds who are celebrities with a fan base, to get out the word on their social media or in person if they're at conventions. I mean, we had a lot of it is just handing out these stickers, which the QR code takes you directly to our website where you can register to vote. Check to make sure that your registration is up to date, like with your address. Make sure that you're registered for a mail-in ballot if you'd like that, and so forth. So it's very grassroots, but a lot of it just hinges on the idea of if your favorite superhero or the person that plays your favorite superhero told you that voting was important and encouraged you to register to vote, maybe you would. So yeah, we're nonpartisan, but we're just encouraged that nerds are just a really problem-solving, empathetic, and creative group that we're confident will vote in everybody's best interest.
I love it. I love it. So that this organization got me exceptionally like excited because I work for an organization, like my paycheck comes from an organization called Mississippi Votes. And
Oh,
so
okay.
we kind of focus on empowering young people to get out the vote. We just did our first summer camp where we
Mhm.
took kids into the Delta of Mississippi, which is took them to museums, taught them about policy, Mississippi history, and those were a bunch of like ninth and 10th graders. And they have fellowships for people in college. And we just try to find ourselves where the people are. And yeah, we're also nonpartisan because, nonprofit. But
Mhm.
we just want to say, hey, your vote does matter
Mhm.
because there's so many people feel like it doesn't. And it's so upsetting. And I just want to like, I promise you, you matter. Just register, please.
Yeah, and as somebody who works for a state-based organization, I mean, one of the big things that we talk about is like there's so much voter apathy and election exhaustion this year. And so much of it has to do with the presidential election. We're like, gang, that's just one. There is so many other things on this ballot.
Exactly.
And those state and local elections probably will affect your day-to-day life more than the president. So, it's really about when we're getting out the vote, it's every election, every time. It's not just the big ones every 4 years.
Yeah, I tell them like, don't just pay attention to the sexy elections. Like, you need to get your city council people together. Even your mayor. Your all like it's yes, it
Mhm.
all sings. It's like someone explained it to me the other day. They were like, it's like fantasy football. You gotta like get your dream team together. And I was like, okay, you're just
Sure.
peeking sports ball at me, but okay.
Hmm. Hmm. And actually, to the people that, because there's some people that are like, oh, I hate everybody. Okay. But I mean, valid. I understand, in many cases, depending upon what people's, issue of choice is, I get it. I totally get it. But I think there's two things that we need to remember. Sometimes these elections are about choosing your opponent, choosing who is in your advocacy, who are the people, state, local, federal, that are closestly aligned to you, even if they are ostensibly against the thing that you're for, that but are closely aligned in your ethics, that as you protest, rally, make calls, write letters, that they are the most likely to sway your way. That, I mean, sometimes we just got to pick the one that we're happiest to fight against, like, or to argue with. And there's also if you don't like the people at the top, you don't like your senators, you don't like your house, you don't like you like your president. The only way we're able to create a deep bench of awesome talent is by voting for them in those local elections, because that's where they start. People climb up the ladder over time. So we got to make sure that we are fighting for that really, if you're progressive, that really progressive candidate that you really like, who's maybe running for city council, and start off their career there.
I'm gonna cry. these are these are things that I feel like I'm saying to people every day, and these will probably be the things that I lift for social, because it's what people need to hear. And thank you,
Sure.
thank you.
Hey.
So we'll do some fun things. I have my one more question.
Okay.
How much of Morph did you get to create? Because he was kind of almost a blank slate in the original, like the 90s series.
Mhm.
You know, we only had him in a few episodes. And so you got to create this very like queer and fabulous Morph, and it just makes me smile. And when I saw they in the bio, I cried. So I just how much of Morph did you get to create? And
I mean, I will say it's really a collab. I mean, almost more so than anybody. Morph is such a collaborative character because he does transform. Oh, and sorry, I use he they interchangeably for Morph. But um, uh, he's he's collaborative in the sense that there are other people that voice him because he changes into other people, and then like they get to do the sassy more their sassy version of Morph, which has been really fun. I especially love when Morph changes into Jean Grey in like the first episode, and
mm,
hearing Jen Hale do my sassy is yes. I knew that Morph was non-binary when I first read the script about them. So for the for the audition, so that was already there. But I think so much of what makes Morph's character sing is that there were a bunch of queer people that were in the creative team and on the writing staff that had that experience. I mean, Charlie Feldman, Bo DeMeo, like there were people who were inputting their feelings onto the page and inputting their experience. So Morph, was not just going to be that diversity check mark. There is actually an authenticity about Morph, aside from having a genderqueer actor actually play them. But I will say, if if I have to talk about my hand in it, I think so much of what makes Morph important to me is that reading the script about a non-binary human in the 90s exploring their gender identity and just using humor to push through trauma, I was like, oh, it's me. Cool. Just, which is why, I mean, this is Morph's voice. I don't really put on a voice for Morph very much. Sometimes he gets a little more nasal, just to make the laugh work. But like, um, but for the most part, it's me. And I think Morph has just been a wonderful opportunity for me to explore my gender identity and learn more about myself, as this is a character that explores more about themselves. I mean, I like to think, when I get the question like, well, why does Morph have the gray face in this series as opposed to the more human face that they had in the original? And I'm like, well, I don't have the official answer to that, but what my feeling is if you are somewhere in the gender universe and you're exploring what your gender identity is and you have the power to change your face, I think of Morph having like his Annie Lennox music video moment of like sitting in the mirror and just changing parts of their face and just seeing what feels good, what sparks joy, what feels wrong, like finding that. And I feel like that gray canvas is almost like I'm thinking about it. Hold that thought, you know. So I love
oh, I
Morph.
love that. Okay, at this point, I'll probably just be crying. So, and I apologize because I did mean to ask you at the top of the interview. What are your pronouns, if you don't mind my asking?
So my pronoun, despite being genderqueer, my pronouns are he, him.
Okay, okay.
And I think some of that stems from when you're in your 40s. I think of my he him pronouns sort of as like that old college sweatshirt that you have. It's like it's a little frumpy and it doesn't quite fit the way that it used to, but it's the comfiest thing you own. And until you find a better sweatshirt, you'll keep wearing it.
I have one hanging. The shoulders are cut
So
out. It's very
Uh-huh.
80s.
Yes. Yes.
I live. Oh gosh. So let's just have a fun silly questions.
Mhm.
So, you have one song that plays every time you enter the room. What's the song and why?
God, there's like 7 that just popped into my head. Because it's such a mood-based thing. Like, I don't know if every day I want it to be Doja Cat's Boss Bitch, but, like, I'm not, because 'cause I'm not always in that
But
mood,
the
but,
way I
like,
had to play that song driving to work in the morning, it's a mood. I feel that.
um, let's see. It's funny. I went to see Deadpool and Wolverine this morning. It was my first chance to watch it this weekend,
I'm going when
and
we finish.
yeah, and they're in the opening, much like in the first Deadpool movie, they play "Angel of the Morning," and for some reason, that's just in my head. Like, yeah, "Angel of the Morning."
I love it. I love it.
I don't know. I will tell you, a really capricious person. I could never get a tattoo because the minute I decided on one and got it, I would hate it and want something different. So, you know.
Same. Same. That is why I don't have one. But I love everyone else's tattoos.
Same.
What was the last gift you gave someone?
Um, the last gift I gave someone was my husband and I just celebrated our second wedding anniversary,
Congratulations.
and this year we went for practical. So I gave him. He needed a new computer bag. So I gave him a new computer bag for travel. I got a doorbell because our doorbell's been broken for like 8 months, and I'm like, I need a new doorbell installed. So,
Perfect. You got exactly what you needed, and you didn't have to
hmm
pay for it.
nope.
Um, if you had a time machine, would you go back in time or forward, and why?
Oh, I think I would go. Hmm, I think I would go back, and I think from an observational standpoint. I
Okay.
think because I think I've seen too many movies where you start to futz with one little thing and everything just goes to heck. So, um, but I think I would go back, like, especially if it's like I'm on death's door and this is the end, and I just want to catch one little glimpse of something before I, you know, um, I think I would like go back and just want to see, like, my grandparents.
Sweet.
Yeah,
Like your grandparents as you experiencing them as a kid, or your
yeah.
grandparents younger?
Oh, that's a good question. Maybe younger. That would be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my
That's
thought.
fun. That sounds like they were just like fun things. I was like, okay, fine. So just fun things to talk about.
hmm
Um,
I mean, because the other answer is like I would go back in time and I would start my life all over again just to uh, reinvent myself as the super contender for Drag Race. But
with all the knowledge.
yeah, with all the knowledge, with all the tricks, and I would just like I dropped out of my gymnastics class at like when I was like 4 years old, and I would definitely stay in it and just make sure I had all of the splits, the dips, and everything at my disposal.
Perfect.
Yep.
Perfect. Who would play you in the movie of your life?
Um, play me. I pity them. Um, maybe this is an odd choice, but maybe not. Like, uh, oh God, their name just went out of my head. That marvelous actor, writer, director who was in like The Problemista and has did Los Spookies on HBO Max and is doing that other show on HBO Max right now. Um, what is his name?
I'm looking it up. Los Spookies. Um, Julia Torres.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay, Julia. I'll put like a
Yeah.
little picture of him up.
I think he'd be great.
I love it. I love it.
He has a sensibility of weird that I'm like, "Yep, you get it. You get it."
And last one. If
Mhm.
you were given a blank check to make your dream project, what would it be?
Oh, okay. When you say project, do you mean entertainment project, or do you just mean anything in general?
Anything in general. It could be like a nonprofit situation. It could be
Yes.
entertainment.
So I'm a big believer in playing the lottery, like, especially when it goes over a billion, like the Mega Millions or the Powerball, especially when they go over a billion, because that is world-changing money, and you don't want it to be in the wrong hands. So it's socially responsible to win that money. Like, it's like the Infinity Stones, like, they shouldn't be in the wrong hands, you know? So if I had $1 billion, I would invest. I mean, God, if it was like what if even if after taxes it was like a billion, like $750 million would go into um an endowment that is specifically for like queer and underserved community growth.
Yeah.
Just giving out grants left and right to organizations or even
Mm.
people that need it. Like, let's just do community giving. Um, yeah, and then I would survive on a meager 250 million. That's
I mean, I think you could make it work. Have you seen Loot on Disney Plus? Not Disney
loot
Plus. Not Disney Plus. Apple TV. Apple TV.
loot.
Loot with
Oh, with Maya Rudolph.
Maya Rudolph. Yes.
I've watched a bit of the first season. I need to catch up
It
because I
is
love
very
I love everybody in it.
the cast. The cast. But the plot of the show is very much that. She has this money and she's giving it away.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I love it.
Mhm.
I love it. Thank you so much for taking the time to sit with me.
Hey, anytime. This was a
I
great
really
chat.
thank you so much.